Well, hi again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder on Wednesday, the 30th of April, 2025. And today, Real ID, for official purposes, will set you free. Or at least it should, because if you really start looking at the paperwork that you get from the government, or if you've had the privilege of being a defendant in a court case, and look at the way they use your name in the court case, or look at the way that the attorneys use their name in a court case, or look at the way the judge uses his name in a court case, you would see that, well, they're not using the full legal name, which is part of the Real ID. And in the Real ID Act, it defines a full legal name means an individual's first name, middle names, and last name or surname without use of initials or nicknames. So right off the bat, well, Robert A. Rytlewski doesn't have any standing anywhere. He couldn't even be a defendant. If they're going to try me as Robert A. Rytlewski, that's the same as trying me as a John Doe. And so they're claiming they don't know who I am. Yet I have a real ID, so you know who I am. So apparently the court isn't the court under the laws of the United States that says you have to use a real ID or you have to properly identify yourself. And the other thing that it did is the Real ID will tie your full legal name to your Social Security number, which hasn't been done yet, as I showed in a video last week. And we'll do a real quick review on that. But this is my point that if we're going to enforce the Real ID Act that says you have to use your full legal name, then I expect everybody to use their full legal name, or it's not legal, which only makes sense. And as you can see in this definition, it said full legal name means individual's first name, middle names, and last name, or surname. And I believe when it's with surname, that's where the last name is first. Rytlewski, comma, Robert Allen is a full legal name, as is Robert Allen Rytlewski. Right? Either of those are my full legal name when they're tied to my Social Security number. And if you have a ID that's Real ID compliant, in Michigan they put a little gold star up in the right-hand corner, as I remember, right? Then all these things have been determined. There's no reason not to be using your full legal name. Now, if you're a vet or dealing with Social Security, these other places, you'll find out, well, they don't use your full legal name when they contact you. Yeah, they may use it once or twice, but they got all sorts of other places where they're not using it. And so you have all these different record sets then that have different names at the top of what the record goes to. So if you were just searching for records by the full legal name, then there's certain records that wouldn't show up because Robert A. Rytlewski in that record set, isn't the full legal name, so I wouldn't get that record. A little easier to explain when we look at details, but anyways, that's a summary of what's going on. So let's get at it and see what we can find out. Give me just a second, please. So just a real quick review. Last video I did was Social Security card is national ID, but you don't have one. And that's because we don't have the proper forms. And so what I showed in that video was under 20 CFR for Social Security Administration, specifically 20 CFR subsection 422.520 forms related to maintenance of earning records. The following forms are used by Social Security Administration and by the public in connection with maintenance of earnings records, wage earners, and self-employed persons. It's listing all these different forms, so a lot of us know what an SS4 is, an SS5, right? Heard of those before. But then you go down this OA-702, Social Security Number Card. Right? This is the form then that we should be getting that has a Social Security number on it. And I had these other forms. Another one of interest was the OAAN 5028, which is evidence of application for Social Security number card. Well, you'll find out that you can't find this form anywhere, right? So you can't get one to find out if there's any evidence you ever applied for a Social Security number card or not. And the Social Security number card is the OA-702. So what's going on here? Well, this is the OA72 that we should be getting, right? Form OA702. And this has been detached because it goes to another form also that they keep, so you only get this part, right? So if you didn't get this part, chances are that the other part doesn't exist either, which is the record of your earnings. So they're not keeping a track of any records of your earnings because they're not using the proper card, which, establishes the record for whatever needs to happen next to happen. No, we're not using this. Instead, what we get is this card here, Form SSA 3000. Now, you can't find any information on this form either when you go online to the Social Security website, do a search, put in SSA-3000. It's not going to tell you anything about this form, but this is the form that we get. Well, this form, number one, we don't know what it does, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't do what the OA702 does, which is establish your record for your earnings. So all this time you've been working, thinking you're putting this money in Social Security, there's no record of your earnings. Which, that was the whole reason for the card in the first place, is you were supposed to be putting your earnings in, and then you would get a certain spiff at the end of your retirement, 65 or older, It was all about your earnings, right? Well, they're not even keeping track of that anymore. And where this says for Social Security tax purposes, not for identification, well, they, changed that quite soon after, because in an executive order from I believe it was from FDR when he put the system in, he said that that was the number that the federal government was supposed to use to identify you. So, there's all sorts of snakes in the grass when it comes to the federal bureaucracy, and well, here we are, just some more of them. And then just real quick, well, what about the Real ID? What's going on with that? Well, this is from the Homeland Security website, where it says that the Real ID Act, passed by Congress in 2005, enacted the 9/11 Commission's recommendations that the federal government set standards for issuance of source of identification, such as driver's licenses and identification cards. The Act and implementing regulations establish minimum security standards for license issuance and production, and prohibited federal agencies from accepting, for certain official purposes, non-compliant driver's licenses and identification cards. Official purposes covered by the Act and regulations are accessing certain federal facilities, boarding federally regulated commercial aircraft, and entering nuclear power plants. Secure driver's license identification documents are vital components of our national security framework. DHS TSA is committed to enforcing the Real ID Act. Therefore, beginning May 7, 2025, 20 years later, anyone 18 or older that plans to fly domestically or visit certain federal facilities will need Real ID or other acceptable form of identification. Well, I would say that a federal courthouse should, fall into that category. So you would have to be using an identification that could get you into a federal courthouse, your Real ID. Right? Well, if you went to court, though, and you're the defendant and they're not using that name, it's like, well, how is it that the paperwork got into the courthouse if it's not using the Real ID to identify the defendant? And if you bop over to the frequently asked questions and just kind of look at the headings, you can see that one of the things that's going to happen is that to get a Real ID compliant ID, you had to give them your Social Security number. So if it's all been verified, then that is your Social Security number. The fact that we don't have an OA 702 isn't our fault. We have proof. They've agreed that we have a Social Security number. How come they didn't give us the proper card? Right. So, anyways, those two are going to be tied together now. That your full legal name and your Social Security number are tied together because the Real ID Act is finally going to be implemented 20 years after it was passed. So let's look at a few examples here, right? This just happened here recently. This is a criminal complaint against that alleged judge in Wisconsin um, that helped the illegal aliens get out the back door. Right? Well, who's the defendant? Hannah C. Dugan. Well, not her full legal name. We just saw you can't use initials in your full legal name. That's one of the no-nos. No initials, no nicknames. Let's look at that again real quick. And what's that say? Full legal name means individual's first name, middle names, and last name or surname without use of initials or nicknames. Verboten to use initials. There we are. So what does that mean? Well, to me it means, well, then this court is not a court that's in the United States operating under the laws of the United States, because you'd have to use your full legal name. This is a legal matter. I mean, that's what the legal name is for. And they're not using it. But this isn't the only place they do that. Right here was something from 2021 for Bannon, Stephen K. Bannon. Well, yeah, there's no K, so this can't be for him. But it's an indictment, and they put your ass in jail for this. What happened to him? He went to federal prison as Stephen K. Bannon because he didn't say, well, that's not the name on my ID. Right? You want to charge me, brother, you got to use my name, or there's something going on here that needs to change. But it's just not the defendant, right? Let's go down and see, well, who's the attorney? Down to the last page, and we got Matthew M. Graves. Well, again, Matthew, there's no M. I'm afraid Matthew M. Graves is not an attorney for the United States. Matthew M. Graves is an imposter pretending to be an attorney for the United States, because that is not his full legal name. And if you hide your true identity, that's one of the first signs of being a spy, according to the DoD Law War Manual. And another example, here's one that says it's for Elon Musk. Well, there is no Elon Musk, right? Elon Reeve Musk is Elon Reeve Musk's name. That's his full legal name. But that isn't the name that they're taking to court. They're taking Elon Musk in his official capacity. He doesn't have one. Elon Musk is a fiction. It's a nickname. Now, the other thing, if you ever look at these cases, right, is you're supposed to put the name of the court at the top of the document. And there is no court named in the, right, in the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. That bullshit doesn't exist. There is no in the name of the court. Yeah, there it is. See, there's something hokey going on, right? This is what fucking Esquires do. This is what we're dealing with Esquires. Then we can look at all these Esquires that are, supposedly putting this in, and defendants, and I guess this is just all the plaintiffs, attorneys for the plaintiff, right? Attorneys for the plaintiff. Not a one of them is using their full legal name. Got a middle initial, Mimi. I don't believe that's anybody's full legal name. Hell, they're not even in there yet. They're just trying to get into court. Rebecca Beth Stevens, well, that's nobody's full legal name. Right? These people aren't using their full legal name. There's nothing legal about these proceedings. And yet they'll put your ass in prison for the rest of your life with this stuff. All right, here's one now for another one in the court. This has to do with the deportees. Right, where we got Donald J. Trump. Well, he don't have no official capacity as President of the United States. Donald J. Trump doesn't exist. That's not his full legal name. I'm sure it's not Pamela Bondi's full legal name. I'm sure she's got a middle name, and Christy Noem. I'm just guessing. I mean, I don't know, but I know that Donald J. Trump isn't his full legal name. And we go down and look at, the attorneys for this thing, and, there's his middle initial name. There's another middle initial name. Another middle initial name, right? I'm sure if we took the time to go and look to see, well, what was the name that these individuals put on their application to become an attorney from the beginning, you would see that it's not any of these names. The other thing about this is, right, that these attorneys say that they're the attorney for the plaintiff petitioner. Then we look at, well, who is the attorney? Well, the attorney really is the American Civil Liberties Union Foundation of the District of Columbia, or the American Civil Liberties Union Foundation, or the Democracy Forward foundation, and then these people work for them. But these foundations are charities. They're registered charities. They're not law firms. And so they really can't be anybody's attorney for the plaintiff, right? The Democracy Forward Foundation is in contempt of court for impersonating a licensed attorney. It's really that simple. These people aren't here in their private capacity. They're here representing the Democracy Forward Foundation and American Civil Liberties Union Foundation. These fucking foundations are all charities. They're not law firms. They have no legal standing to represent anybody in court, and they're in contempt of court. But you can't get anybody to do anything about it. And just to show again, right? So here we're in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. And in this case, the turd pretended to be the chief judge, James E. Boasberg. Well, again, there's no James E. anybody. That's a fictitious name. He's concealing his true identity, just like the rest of these Esquires. So he's definitely part of the problem. But look at the name of the court here. Now it's the U.S. District Court, District of Columbia. It's not the same name of the court. All right, look at that. They're different. Now, come to find out, U.S. is a Civil War term. And because we're still using it, it's evidence that we're still under the Civil War. Lincoln declared martial law under General Order 141. And because he had declared that, and earlier had published General Order 100, which is the Lieber Code, that says that once martial law has been declared, you got to do A, B, or C before the martial law is released. And the A, B, and C hadn't been done, which is you either got to have a proclamation or an order from the commander-in-chief or a peace treaty. None of those things happened. So the martial law that Lincoln declared in 1863 is still in effect today, and we're still under martial law. And why are we that way? Well, because the governors, once we went under martial law, they all became commanders-in-chief, and they didn't want to give that power up, so they shot Lincoln and created a new constitution they call the Constitution of the United States of America, which is kind of similar to the Constitution of the United States, which is the one the military uses. The biggest difference is you go to Article 2, and the one the military uses, it says the executive power resides in the President of the United States. And that's the seal that we see, and that we believe everything is honky-dory and true. But you look at the Constitution that Congress uses, and it says the executive power resides in the President of the United States of America. Well, we ain't got one of those. And as an enlistee, I took an oath that says I had to follow the orders of the President of the United States. You don't say jack about the President of the United States of America. So this is all done because Esquires, who are, by definition, a Crown agent, have infiltrated and overrun our legal system, replaced lawyers with people who impersonate as attorneys and counselors at law. And none of them have proper oath of office. Welcome to America. Right? Same case now. Now this is attorneys putting it in. Well, they're going to put it in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. That's where they're going to put it in, they say, but that's not the name of the court. And whenever they get an order, it's going to be the U.S. District Court, District of Columbia. How come you don't get away with that there, Donald John Trump? I just don't understand. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. Okay, here we go. Some more Esquires using middle initials, pretending to be attorneys, pretending to be judges, pretending to be, constitutional officers of the United States. Okay, but it's not just court that they do that. Right, Social Security, Robert A. Rutluski. Well, that's not my full legal name. That's not even on my Social Security card. But that's the name they use to contact me with. I'm sure they're doing the same for you. If you're getting that kind of information now. Well, what if you get in trouble at the IRS? Well, here's another one. Guess what they use? A middle initial. I bet you if you go look at your taxes, whatever shit you got from the IRS most recently, you're going to see that they use the middle initial name to identify you. That's not your full legal name. Don't pay their taxes. Because apparently that whoever sent this isn't in the jurisdiction where the full legal name is used, and that's where you are. So they're, they got to take you to your proper jurisdiction. But sometimes they do it right, because this would be my surname, comma, first name. Well, in this case, no comma. Reluski Robert Allen. Okay, that's using my surname, or in this case, they want to call it last first. Well, they show at the top. Make it last first, middle initial. So that's how they did it. Right? That's my name. That's the only name that the military should have for me. Reluski, comma, Robert Allen. Just a couple more to show you. So then, if the DD Form 4 is the one that they use to put an enlistee into the military, then the one they give you when they say that you're out of the military is a DD Form 214, which is also Reluski, comma, Robert Allen. All right, but this is really just a discharge from active duty. It has nothing to do with being released from the military. And as I've said for years, right, if you're an enlistee, once you enlisted, you stay enlisted for life. All right, we've been at war since December 7th, 1941, as proven by the Real I, or not the Real ID Act, but the Legion Act of 2019 that, basically Congress and the president, which was Trump at the time, both acknowledged. So the legislative branch, the executive branch acknowledged that the United States has been at war continuously since Pearl Harbor. And that's why I wanted to see. I'm trying to figure out why are they making May 7th the date to enact the Real ID Act. Well, December 7th, May 7th. I was trying to make, does that somehow work together? I got to figure it out yet. But I've heard Bannon say a couple times here recently that Trump is ending the Second World War. Okay, well, if we start using the Real ID and tie all this paperwork together, in effect, we'll be ending the Second World War, and none of us will be lost anymore. Right now, we're like lost beyond the sea or something. And here's a couple other examples, just, because I like to show this stuff. That we're supposed to be doing official business, right? This says official business on these cards, so that's what the full legal name is for, is official purposes. And here they use Robert Allen Reluski. So I can say, well, that's fine, they did that one, right? But why did they make this one Robert A. Reluski? Apparently, there are two different record sets where there should only be one. And I'm hoping that that's, one of the things that get tied together now is that we don't have that shit anymore. But it's not just Social Security does that. Right? The VA does the same thing. Robert A. Reluski, Robert Allen Reluski. How can that be? Right, here's they mailed Robert A. Reluski, but they say the veteran's name is Reluski, comma, Robert, comma, Allen. Well, that's the first time I've seen that one. Usually it's just Robert Allen, but okay. And then here's one they sent that it was to Robert Reluski. Well, who the hell is that? Right? They mailed it to Robert Allen Reluski, but the paperwork shows it's for Robert Reluski. Now they're Robert A., but the veteran's Reluski, Robert, comma, Allen. All right, this one's good. Robert Allen, did they get that one right? No. Look, they put one way, Robert Allen Reluski, the other way, Reluski, comma, Robert Allen. So you can, you think about that. All these are coming from different data, sets, basically, where the name is the identifying character they're going to use to grab the information. So if you're using a different style of name, you're not always grabbing the same information. And this is why everybody's got, screwed up records, can't get nothing done. What else we do? Yeah, Reluski, Robert A. Now you got R.A. Riddle. Well, the Riddle showed up. And Robert A. Reluski, and this time we got them both the same, right? Robert A., Robert A. So all these are different sets of data. And, So if I was going to give me all the information on Robert Allen Verlusky, the ones that say Robert A wouldn't show up. Okay, so just to go back again, right? This is the card that you probably have now. It's a form SSA 3000, which whatever it is not the card that you're supposed to have gotten to keep track of your earnings, which is a OA 702. And nobody gets this card anymore. See, in fact, this one says Social Security account number at the top. Or this one does. It just says Social Security. So, I believe what it is, see, this is showing that a card number has been established. And it says this card has been established for. It's like on your birth, they establish a number for you, but you really don't use this number until you start getting earnings, which is what the AO 702 is supposed to be. This is all about keeping track of your earnings, but we're not getting this card. So a number's been established for us, but apparently we've never asked for it. Which is why you'd have to be able to get this OAAN 5028, which is evidence that you applied for the AO 702 form. But until you do that and you get the AO 702, they're not keeping track of your records for earnings. Right? And then you got an OAR 7004 request for statement of earnings. That'd be a good one to get. I'd like to see if that one exists. I don't even know if that form exists yet. But as you can see, they intentionally muddy the waters with your name and the forms they use and the way they put ship it on forms and so forth, and create this illusion, all orchestrated by Esquires, which by definition are agents of the Crown, who are in cahoots with the banker, with the Crown, which is really owned by the bankers. Right after Waterloo, Rothschild ended up owning all of England because of he caused the market to crash and went and bought it up. Right, crashed the market, going to buy pennies on the dollar. Same old thing they do time after time after time. So how about it there, Elon Musk? What are you going to do about this, right? You're going to allow them to just charge you as Elon Musk and have them take all your shit? Or are you going to say, well, that's not my name. My name's Elon Reed Musk. It's on my identification. Either charge me and do so in your full legal name, or these proceedings aren't legal. And we're going to ask the military to come in and capture your ass. So will the Real ID set you free? Well, we'll find out. We're going to see what happens starting May 7th. But I'm just saying that from May 7th on, if you get anything that doesn't have your full legal name on it from the government, you need to complain. And I guess I'd complain to Homeland Security, among other places, say, hey, man, they're not using my name. There's something wrong here. Who to complain to is the problem. I mean, finding things to bitch about is no problem. But who to complain to get some resolution on the problem is so far been near impossible to do. But, can't give up. Got to keep trying. Because your full legal name means individual's first name, middle name, last name, or surname without use of initials and nicknames. So until we're all doing it that way, we ain't doing it right. So, if you have to go to court, let's say for a ticket, and you're in court, tell the judge, I want you to read the policeman's driver's license identification name into the record. I want everybody to put their ID into the record from their ID, or this is not a legal proceeding. And, hey, maybe they'll let you go. Say it's more trouble than it's worth. You know too much. That trick won't work with you. Whatever it is, they'll move on, take easier, lower hanging fruit than you. But if you're not going to bitch about it, they're going to run you through as a John Doe, and they're going to be a John Doe. The attorney's going to be a John Doe. The court's a John Doe. None of this has happened in the proper court. The name of the court's in the. But there are no courts named in the. So it's all happening in a fiction. And I don't, for myself, I'm not consenting to being tried as a fiction. So, okay, you all have a great day, and I hope you found it useful. We'll see you now.